have the undying appreciation of your fans, being continuously undermined by your stakeholders, and then be unceremoniously dumped by your owners. How much do you need to earn for that? For Pat Cummins and Sunrisers Hyderabad, the number is 20 crores. Pat Cummins now has a chance to set up his post-cricket legacy by making friends with the Telugu movie stars, so he and David Warner can team up to star in Pushpa #3 or Bahubali #3. So, we've got that out of the way. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Common Fan Show. Wishing you a very happy New Year 2024. And let's get right into it. We've got a jam-packed show. So we'll talk about the IPL auction. We'll also cover the new entrants to the former Test Cricketers Club, that is David Warner and Dean Elgar. We'll do a quick review of the men's Australia-Pakistan, India versus South Africa, and the women's India versus Australia Test Series, and then segue into the health of Test cricket as a whole. So we've got our usual suspect. We've got Manan, Puri, Ritvik, and the wunderkind, Mr. Vijaynarain. Vijay, let's get to you first. Happy New Year. Are you in what's happening on the music front? Are you in the Maldives or Lakshadweep? And what are your thoughts on the IPL?
Good afternoon and Happy New Year, everyone. Feels great to be back on this podcast. I am not in Lakshadweep, neither am I in the Maldives, although it might appear that I am between those places. I am very much in Chennai. And speaking of Chennai and roads, I understand that there's been a lot of talk. I mean, we usually talk about pitches being roads in Indian conditions, but then I'm so happy that finally South Africa produced a pitch that was a road, except that it was a Chennai road. So you could never really predict where the potholes were and where the odd bounce was. It's been a pretty decent start to the new year of cricket, because Pakistan showed a little more promise than any other visiting team in Australia, with the exception of India, has in their last test in Sydney. And PK, I heard you were responsible for that by cheering for Australia in person at the SCG. So
Yes, I was. We'll talk about Test cricket, but I want to talk to you about IPL. What are your thoughts on the winners and losers of the IPL?
Look, I think Pat Cummins and Mitchell Starc have basically, I mean, they're pretty much living out their best case scenarios as cricketers, as best as anybody could have dreamed it, because they've been dedicated to Test cricket. They've avoided the IPL, citing preparations for Ashes and whatnot. And yet here they are with two of the most expensive contracts ever in the history of the game. And, they kick India's ass when they play against us in like big tournaments. So, I mean, if I were Pat Cummins or Mitchell Starc, I'd just be like laughing all the way to the bank, and then laughing a bit more at just the general state of cricket right now. And yeah, I really wouldn't give a shit if Test cricket's dying or not, if I'm making money that I'm making in IPL. So there you have it. I mean, the BBL's on right now. Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah. No.
The Strikers are playing their last game.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, it's fantastic. It also reflects the clout that the BCCI wields, and of course, there's been a lot of other hot topics concerning the IPL, such as Rohit Sharma's future with the Mumbai Indians, and of course the Hardik Pandya's drastic switch from being captain of a really successful 2-year side back to his home ground. So let's get your thoughts on it, Manan.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to know what Nehraji's first reaction was when he heard that Pandya is moving out. Although he came out and during the IPL auction and he kind of said, yeah, it's about him, he wants to move, blah, blah, blah. But I'm sure, from the inside, he will be obviously lashing out all the choicest Hindi words from his Delhi upbringing. But nonetheless, this was surprising, to be honest, seeing Pat Cummins and Mitchell Starc, and especially Starc, getting in for 24 crores. Only Gautam Gambhir could have done that, to be honest. Maybe somebody told him that Chennai is vying for him and MS Dhoni wants Mitchell Starc so bad. So that's why he said, okay, I have to beat this man for sure.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Otherwise, I see there is no reason for them to get Starc. And frankly, Bangalore and places like Chennai, anyways, will not be effective. Bangalore, he'll get tonked all the way. He's not going to bat as much. It's just a brilliant deal for the guy. And I feel a lot for, on the flip side, looking at Pandya's transfer for Bumrah and to some extent Sky as well. Basically, those guys are the employees who stick around in an organization for a very long time, getting a 5%, 10% hike every year. And then here comes in a hotshot MBA graduate who's coming in with a 50% hike from outside. That's the feeling I'm sure that these guys are having. So overall, I think unpredictable. Of course, a few good buys for other franchises like Rachin Ravindra was a steal at about 5 crores. And overall, it has been a good auction. I would love to see how it plays out eventually. But of course, in any case, we are rooting for CSK, I think all of us. So overall, yeah, looks good. Ritvik, what do you think about it?
Well, I think Gujarat knows a thing or two about having MBA students make their careers from their states. And probably Manan is also making a discreet sales pitch to more MBA aspirants to come and join him at SOG. Um, that said, I'm also curious to see if Rohit Sharma will switch sides. Will he move to some other team or will he continue to play under Pandya? That's going to be very interesting. I'm sure the Ambanis must be trying to placate him, but the way in which it was done, I would have ideally liked Rohit Sharma to come out with a video and resign on his own. But the way it was done, it didn't reflect really well, especially in the aftermath of the World Cup debacle, where a lot of heart went out for Rohit Sharma. But that said, probably it was the right move in the team's interest because Mumbai Indians hasn't had the best of the last three IPLs, and given the kind of um, and if you actually look at Australia in ODI cricket, Australia have been ruthless with their leaders. Steve Waugh lost one series and they sacked him, not just from captaincy, but also from the team. They gave it to Ponting and Ponting won them the World Cup. So if the Mumbai Indians management is taking a cue from Australia, then they have done the right thing. Probably it could have been done in a better way. That said, personally, I have still not been able to watch cricket. I had absolutely no idea about what was happening in the India versus Australia T20 series. Something happened in the white ball series in South Africa, and by the time I decided to watch the second Test match versus South Africa, it got over. So there was hardly anything that I could do. But ever since the World Cup disaster, the most interesting piece of cricket has not happened in Perth, not in Palakil, not in Pretoria, but in Patna. And I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Patna does have a cricket stadium. It's barely 3 to 4 kilometers from my house in Patna. It's called Moinul Haq Stadium. It has also hosted a World Cup game back in 1996 between Zimbabwe and Kenya. And if you remember the spinning all-rounder from Paul Strank, he got a 5-wicket haul in that game, and it continues to be his best ODI figures. So,
Can I
he will
say something here?
Yeah,
I just
please.
remember that at that point, Zimbabwe had, I think, 3 pairs of brothers playing in the team. So there was like Paul Strang and Brian Strang. There was Andy Flower, Grant Flower, and there were, I think, Street brothers or someone else. Like there were a couple of.
No, Heat Streak was he a twin?
Heat Streak was only one.
No, wait,
Probably
wait,
there was somebody else.
There was somebody else, but they had like 3 pairs of brothers.
Yeah, quite possible, quite possible. Yeah,
sorry,
so
it's a random fact.
Paul Strang will go to his grave with his best ODI figures coming in Patna in a stadium which now looks like this.
Oh,
Jesus Christ!
So this is where the Ranji match between Bihar and Mumbai took place over the last 3 days. It did not go beyond, because just like the test matches nowadays, the Ranji match also did not go beyond the third day. And you know that Bihar produces some really top academics, right? You have people in IITs and civil services who come from Bihar, and Bihar produces them so well that they just come out of Bihar. And just like that, people who score a perfect 100 in their exams. The Bihar team also scored a perfect 100 in both the innings, and they lost to Mumbai by an innings and 51 runs. But the most interesting bit happened before the game, where in a perfectly meritocratic situation, there were 2 teams from Bihar who came there. One which was nominated by the president of the Bihar Cricket Association, and the other which was nominated by the secretary, the SAG secretary. There were 22 players waiting outside the stadium with their officials, and apparently they got into a scuffle where the OSD of some of the minister of Bihar also had an injury to his head. And finally the president had a say, and then 11 players could field.
Oh, geez.
Ajinkya Rahane was supposed to play this game, but apparently he woke up that morning with neck spasm. I really don't know whether they were true or not, or maybe he was just trying to protect himself from what could happen on the field. Bihar also made a new record in this game. They had a 12-year-old making his Ranji debut, and I have got absolutely no doubts about the authenticity of his birth certificate.
Yeah,
Such kind of
absolutely.
things never happen in Bihar.
Yes.
Hey,
Or,
but look,
or,
look,
or for
can
that
I
matter,
just
Pakistan. Yeah.
can I just say that this is, I mean, if this is not an endorsement of the fantastic cricketing culture in India, I don't know what else is. I mean, if a state like Bihar with a stadium in that shape can produce 22 players for a Ranji game, like they've got an A team and a B team, then imagine the kind of talent that India has got. Like, I think we're in safe hands.
Yeah, so Pandya once said, right, that India can field three teams and they go to three different tournaments, and Bihar is just replicating that model. Although, Pandya will not be part of all the three teams because he'll be injured, but India can still field those teams.
Yeah, there is a rumor that he might miss out on the next IPL as well, right? So I think this was
So
all
Pandya,
a yeah.
I don't think Pandya will miss the IPL for anything.
Mate, it's the
He'll walk
IPL. He
on.
doesn't
He
miss
will
IPLs. He
walk
misses,
on.
misses everything else.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, it'll
Yeah,
be
he
really
will walk
ironic.
on one leg, but yeah, he'll walk on one leg, but he'll take the field for the IPL. I'm sure.
It'll be ironic if after all this, Pandya decides to skip the IPL and Rohit Sharma becomes captain of Mumbai Indians for one last time by
But
default.
guys, what is this about Rohit Sharma and Virat playing the India-Afghanistan series? Because these guys, especially Virat, they have been skipping series off and on over the last 2-3 years. But how come they're interested in this Afghanistan series all of a sudden?
World Cup prep, and
Start
I think
padding.
no, it's not start padding. It's definitely World Cup prep because I feel like India. I mean, the selectors have suddenly woken up to the fact that Kohli and Rohit Sharma sentimentally they probably deserve one more shot at the World Cup glory, which I really don't think is going to happen in the US of all the places. But I also feel like they've kind of become a bit insecure about some of the younger players because there's a lot to choose from and you never know who's going to fail in which game. So maybe just the steadiness that Rohit and Kohli bring to the side. And let's face it, I mean, they are big game players and they've got a bunch of World Cups behind them, World Cups that they haven't won but they've played in.
And
Yeah.
so just because you mentioned that they are not too impressed by the younger players, I'm really curious about what's happening with Ishan Kishan because the guy seemed to be in the thick of things for a while. He has been traveling with the Indian team for a year, and just before the South Africa tour, he decided to skip, saying that mental fatigue owing to travel, while he has not been playing any cricket, has affected him. And honestly, like we have seen a generation of cricketers being created on the back of Sena twos. The likes of Sachin, Ganguly, Dravid, they all played well in Australia, England, South Africa, etc. And only then they went on to become what they did. So I hope the guy is doing well. But I thought it was some privilege for a 12th man to take leave from a Sena tour in a situation where his career has not been established. And now there are rumors about he not being considered for the T20 World Cup as well. And suddenly Sanju Samson seems to be back in the thick of things.
So what do you know? What do you millennial would know about the Gen Z mental health problems?
Yeah, man, I know.
Let's hear it from the guy that's been honing Gen Zs into MBAs.
No, man, don't ask me.
Or should I
There
say
is,
grooming Gen Z?
Jesus.
it's a, it is, yeah. I can write a book on that in terms of how Gen Z is and how they are brilliantly and have a strong head.
Dude, Manan,
Go on.
please stop finding ways to make money on our show.
At least somebody
now,
has to make money on the show.
now you're trying to promote a book which you have not even written.
Typical NBA. No, but Manan, I actually want to get back to you on that. What do you actually thought of the India-South Africa series? We know Ritvik didn't watch it, or whenever he watched it, the game was over. But Manan, what your thoughts on India versus South Africa, and then all to Vijay?
So first of all, I don't think I got that hype of while I was looking forward to the Test cricket and all that, but it was not didn't feel like that final frontier because of the two Test series because two Tests is not that big an achievement. Even if you win it, it has to be a 3 or a 5 test where you're actually grinding it out. Overall, that was there. The first test, I thought again it
Grinding.
was taking me back to 2021. What? Yeah.
Grinder.
Grinding.
It's like being in a
Grinding.
grinder, right?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
MTV grind generation is shocking.
Right.
So the first test was, of course, lost by an innings and clearly showed that there is no match practice that they had, which was again thanks to the tours and the scheduling and all that. Second test was at a very difficult pitch. It challenged the batters, and that's how batters need to improve upon their skills. It's not about the pitch was bad. It is just about this test cricket, guys, and the batters need to adapt to those conditions. Unless, of course, they are in India where the pitch is rated poor and is okay to have a double bounce, but it's fine that if the ball is having uneven bounce and take your head off, that's absolutely okay because that's a challenge as part of the test.
Right. We get your sarcasm, Manan. Look, my thoughts are similar on this. I will publicly fight against the double standard that Indian pitches get versus or subcontinental pitches get versus Sena pitches. Having said that, that second test pitch I don't think was as dangerous as we've made it out to be. I feel like there was a bit of Adelaide happening over there, where of course the pitch had a bit of variable bounce, but surprisingly this time Indian bowlers, they were very consistent with the line and the length, and they were bowling the ball in the same areas. And this was this slightly unplayable length where if you have to like be play the ball late, but then you can't be on the front foot. If you're on the front foot, you're caught and you're going to get that edge. But it wasn't even a comfortable length to like cut or play across the wicket either. So I really think it's a commendable job that the Indian bowlers did in the first session, especially Siraj, because he has this thing where he once he gets into that rhythm with like 2 or 3 wickets, then he goes on to like get like the rest of the wickets, right? So this is exactly what happened in Adelaide. It was not a demonic wicket, but then the bowlers just put the ball in the exact same right areas, and then we were all like caught unawares, and that nagging length was what got us in. So that I think is what happened. That does not justify how we lost 6 wickets for 0 runs, because all of those shots were like terrible ways to get out. And there were a few good learnings I feel from the South Africa series, which was that Shreyas Iyer is not built for Test cricket. And KL Rahul deserves a lot more respect than we've given him in the past. And Virat Kohli is the absolute legend that he is given his innings in that 153 odd that India made. That was like such a beautiful innings to watch. He got out trying to salvage the innings and hit out. So likewise in the first test. The first test I think was the and again scheduling, the lack of practice matches. And this time we don't have to blame the BCCI. We can conveniently blame Cricket South Africa for
African
this.
world, yeah.
I mean, they're sending like a B team to New Zealand for 2 tests or 3 tests, and there's been a lot of furor over that with Australians of all
Dude,
teams.
anyway, South Africa's A team always looks like a B team.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'll always find half players that I don't know.
I don't think it makes a difference who South Africa sends. But having said that, South Africa are a team that's actually had pretty decent success in Australia on their overseas tours. So you never know. On that note, Klassen has also announced retirement from Test. So we were talking about Ishan Kishan deciding to take a mental health break from being 12th man. I totally understand. I've been part of gigs and recordings where I've done scratch vocals, and then somebody else like Arijit Singh comes and sings the final song. That's kind of how Ishan Kishan probably feels, like just being in the team and not being given opportunities. So if you're talking about that, then imagine the career of Klassen, who has played a sum total of 4 test matches for his country, right? And he's announced his retirement today. So I feel like there's a lot more retirements coming in the South African team. And that might also be Cricket South Africa's way of justifying that, it wasn't their B team. We're actually sending our A team because the B team just retired.
Look, it's been very interesting. Look, we lose by an innings in the first test, have a collapse of 6 for no loss in the second, and then continue to win the game. Kohli's innings second test, masterclass, man. I mean, anyone that accuses him of being crappy, they just need to look at that inning. That was fantastic. The bowlers bouncing back after conceding 300 in that first test, they bowled shit in that first test, and they really got their legs together.
Except Prasid Krishna.
Yeah, except Prasid Krishna, except another PK. But even even though the Indian cricket team is meant to be in a period of transition, right? Our bowling attack is just fantastic. I actually wanted to talk about another test match. This one in India, and this one involving the women's team. India versus Australia, a one-off test. We talk about those classic test matches that go on to the last day, the last hour of the last day. Well, this one went on to the fourth day, which is the last day in women's cricket. Certainly went to the last day. It had certainly a lot of spice and adventure. Rana and Gaikwad, the two ladies there, the two spinners, when they were bowling, you'd think it was, Budgie on one end, Kumble on the other end of the Wankhede doing their things against Ponting and War. Quick thoughts if anyone did watch it. What did you reckon, Manan?
Watch it.
Jeez. Ritvik, did you watch it? Because I know you.
I watched.
Harmanpreet.
I watched parts of it, and I was following this course, so it felt nice to see India beat Australia so comprehensively. And I've also been following the white ball series subsequently, and as expected, the Indian women lost the one-day series against Australia. It's just incredibly difficult to win against the Australian women's side. We started the T20 series off well with a very comprehensive win by, I think, 9 wickets against the Australian women. And the second game, we apparently lost because of this girl called Shreyanka Patil, who's just 21 years old. And I know this because Harmanpreet Kaur, their captain, threw her under the bus publicly yesterday. She was defending 15 runs of the last 2 overs, and she bowled the 19th over. And the game ended in the 19th over. She got hit for a few boundaries. Now, this is something that happens to pretty much every bowler, like Bumrah. It's happened to Bumrah, it's happened to Siraj, it's happened to like all big bowlers, right? But here's this girl who's just 21 years old. She's entered the squad. And what does the captain do in the press conference? She goes, Shreyanka should have conceded those runs. She just literally threw her under the bus. And what were we defending? 134 or something like that's 9 out of 10 times that kind of a score is going to get chased down in T20, right? So this seems to be, and again, I'm not like policing. It's a bunch of guys, talking about on-field behavior of a women's cricket team. I don't know. There might be a bit of an irony there, but I think Harmanpreet's on-field actions of late have drawn a lot of attention and I would say justified criticism, especially the way she reacted in Bangladesh after that series, and then tirades against the umpire, and then now this. So maybe it brings the question that is there a need for a change in the leadership? Has it been, or maybe just a little bit of bringing back that. It's one thing to be aggressive. Virat Kohli is aggressive, but he would never like single out a player and throw them under the bus, especially someone who's just entered your national side and really starting their career. So I wonder what the team atmosphere is like.
Yeah, I did see that one in the game, the T20 one, and
so you follow the gossip, you just don't follow the games.
No, I saw the game. I'm saying, not the test match. That was the question. But I think going back, all of that, to be honest, started in Bangladesh, and maybe the air of the country is such that it produces captains and cricketers who are smugs and they do not respect the game or other people. Case in point being Mr. Hassan, who is again in the news for slapping a fan. I'm not sure if you guys saw that video.
Wait, there's a video of him slapping the fan?
Yes, it is. It is in a crowd.
It's not a slap, it's like a smack.
It's a smack. Yeah.
That's probably the best shot he's played in ages. I mean, you want to see him play that on the cricket field, but hey, a shot is a shot.
And to give the benefit of the doubt, maybe the fan was, heckling in the crowd to him and all that. But just to give the benefit of the doubt to the fan, because it was Shakib, I'm sure it was Shakib that he, it was his fault and not the fans, for sure. So it has to be him.
Fair enough. Okay, since you guys haven't talked about that, what about Australia versus Pakistan? Anyone seen that?
I did mention that briefly, and I spoke about you going to the game, PK. So we would like to hear about your experience at the SCG. I heard you were in the members and you were having like more than half-strength beer on that game, and you got really pissed. And
yes, that was me. That was me trying to jump over the fence and trying to get Pat Cummins autograph. No, I did go to the test
the
match.
Jarvo.
I met I think all of our heroes, one of our heroes, Mr. Wazim Akram. I was fortunate enough to buy his autobiography that he co-wrote with Gideon Haigh. Gave it to him on the morning of the test match, and he signed it and gave that to me. So really, really happy for that. I also happened to meet Mark Taylor.
Did you invite him to the podcast?
I did. He asked me what the Common Fan Show was. So I think we need to.
That's a good start.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you answer him? I mean, you should just tell him it is a
I
show
did.
about
I did.
common
I said,
fans.
please,
Yeah.
please come. It's a show about cricket. And he goes, I've already just been on the pavilion. Why would I want to come to your show? But anyway, that is Mr. Wazim Akram for you. Look, photos and selfies and autographs aside, I think one thing this Australia-Pakistan series highlighted is that visiting teams need to bring not their A game, but their A+ game when you play Australia in Australia, right? You need to have bowlers that will steam in session after session to take 20 wickets, batters who will grind down when the going gets tough, and then fielders who will hold on to every chance. And you need to do all of these three things simultaneously. Pakistan did these three things.
I humbly beg to disagree with you, PK, on that.
Yeah.
Because you cannot bat when you're fielding and you cannot bowl when you're batting.
Well,
So you cannot
yes,
do the three
I
things
get the
simultaneously.
point. Yes,
Sorry,
yes.
go on.
Thank you for being. Oh my God, you wanker. Anyway, but look, Pakistan did them right. They bowled well in one game or one innings. They batted well in another innings, and they fielded well. Well, they never fielded well. But anyhow, but they never did that in one game at a stretch, which is why they came close in all the three games, but they could never press their advantage. And when you've got your strike bowler Shaheen Shah Afridi sitting out of the Sydney Test because of, I don't know, fatigue or something, and then you see him on the sidelines, which I did, taking the white ball and chucking a few, where Test cricket's going. Look, the one thing I also want to note is the Pink Test, the Sydney Test is called the Pink Test. They wanted to pay tribute to the Glenn Mcgrath Foundation, which hosts the Pink Test. I understand they've raised 6 million Australian dollars, which would go on to have a breast cancer care nurse to anyone who needs it in Australia. So it was a wonderful cause. It was a wonderful test. Yeah, that was my experience.
Nice. I remember wearing pink to that test as well a couple of years ago when India was visiting, and that game was something that we should have won, but the rain saved the Australians. We still ended up winning the series in 2019. So
That's right. That's right.
That was a fantastic experience.
Talking about Glenn McGrath, I saw a short video yesterday where Gilly was talking about the 2003 World Cup final. Yes, another bad memory. So he said that just before the toss, the conditions were overcast, and these guys were also anticipating that probably there would be some movement. Ganguly won the toss, and somehow just before the players went onto the field and Gilly and Hayden went out to bat, Ganguly crossed paths with Glenn McGrath, and McGrath silently whispered near Ganguly that that's the first mistake that you have made today, friend, or might like he would have said. And as prophetic as his words were, very soon the overcast conditions disappeared. The sun was out bright and shining, and Hayden and Gilly took Zahir Khan apart. And the rest, as I say, is history. Not one that we
Zahir
would like
Khan
to
took
remember.
himself apart by bowling that wide down leg side for
Yes, he
four.
did.
So, that's a different story altogether.
Let's
Move
not
on.
revisit that. Look, guys, if you want reasons to hate Glenn McGrath, well, he is a game hunter, and he's been killing endangered animals in Africa, and he's apologized for that, but then not really, because off the record he's gone about saying how much he enjoys killing animals. So I mean, I'm just giving you guys just adding some
and he
balance
has
to this
also
conversation.
killed a lot of aspirations and probably taken out 1,000 runs from Sachin Tendulkar's records as well.
Yeah, sadly there was no Manan Puri for all the aspiring bowlers back in the day to crack that.
I could have helped Michael Kasparovich with his MBA applications had I been running the show that time.
Oh God. Hey, I want to actually talk about the health of Test cricket. There's been a lot of talk on it, and I know we promised to talk about that. So I'll share my thoughts on this last. I want Manan, you go first. The health of Test cricket, what do you reckon?
It's not in a good shape overall for sure. Because I think it's true with a couple of things. One, the entire generation that is starting to watch cricket right now, they don't have the time, or they do not want to have the time. So even if us cricket tragics, watch it. It won't last that long in terms of legacy. It won't be passed on to that next generation that it has been so far. To my grandfather or my father, and in your cases also, it's in a similar case. So that is not helping. Plus the kind of pitches and the games, etc., that are happening. It's a chicken and egg problem also for the authorities. That do you promote test cricket and you invest money in it, and then people will not come in and the game dies as a whole, or they'll let test cricket die or basically slow it down while they promote T20I as an ODI cricket. So it's just that. And again, the way the matches are happening, that's not helping either. So overall, test cricket is in a difficult situation. It will be because that not a lot of countries also play test cricket. Maybe top 3 or 4 countries who are playing respectable cricket. That is another problem. And overall, cricket as a game can benefit from a lot of viewers, and that's why we are having a T20 World Cup in the US, where the team, is obviously not playing as well and those kind of things. So overall, yes, it's going to be bad. I don't see it coming up very, very soon. So it is in bad shape and probably would die down or eventually a very, 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 very slow, painful death.
Yeah, probably it's going to be a thing for the cricket elites and tragics. Again, so uh, forget test cricket. I think cricket is in a very confused state right now. I don't know of any other mainstream sport that has got three different formats, or maybe we can say that cricket is not really mainstream. We are still stuck with the same 8 to 10 cricketing nations. In fact, lesser now. West Indies is in shambles. Sri Lanka is neither here nor there. Pakistan has been erratic for a very, very long time right now. But back in 90s, I think in the overall condition of cricket was better in the 90s when Zimbabwe was doing
Zimbabwe
well.
was a test playing nation.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. And they used to pose serious competition to the stronger teams. Uh, the likes of Kenya and all were coming up, but again they died because of their own internal politics and probably no support from the ICC. Netherlands was doing well, but right now I actually have no idea about what are the other cricketing nations that are coming up. The richest cricketing body is focused more on the IPL. Again, so there is a clear misalignment of incentives. So and if I look around myself, I live in Delhi, like that's a metropolitan city, obviously. So young kids around me, they're really not watching cricket.
Yeah.
So all the World Cup screening which was done in my society that has thousands of people living together, there were very few kids who were watching it. There were more people of my and your generation who were watching it. So where's the future? And forget test cricket. I'm 200% sure that they're not interested in test cricket. So pretty tough times right now. I hope BCCI realizes this and doesn't just focus on minting money through the IPL.
Look, I honestly think I wouldn't be too worried about the future of cricket as a sport, because I think there are efforts to take it to wider, take it to a wider audience, and it has to happen through the most entertaining format, which is T20. That's kind of what's happening right now. I mean, the Americans are going to get a taste for the cricket now. I'm kind of scared about that as well, because the Americans have a tendency to make everything about themselves, ruin it, and then suddenly cricket will become the greatest sport in the history of the world because Americans are playing it. It might benefit the game. Test cricket per se, I still think there are certain matchups which are extremely exciting, like the Border Gavaskar Trophy at the end of this year is going to be a cracker of a series. I'm pretty convinced it's going to be a whitewash in Australia's favor, given the state of the team that we're fielding these days. However, it's still going to be amazing, and I'm really hoping I'll be able to catch it live in Australia at the end of the year. So, but you're right in that some of the other nations like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, even South Africa, I would say, I dare say, because as visiting teams, there are not a whole lot of nations that are doing really well in cricket, and a lot more needs to be done by the ICC to, get that impetus into the sport. South Africa hosting India for just 2 tests is absolutely unacceptable, because the contests are by themselves so intense and it's such a great matchup. In the end, it's the cricketing fan that's losing out. Now, if the decline must happen because of a generation not following the game, then that, I guess, is inevitable. But I really don't think that is going to be the future of cricket. I don't see cricket dying at least in the next 10 to 15 years or maybe 20 years. I think at different points in our own cricketing fandom, we've also had this conversation. Like a decade ago, we were talking about how T20 is going to kill all of cricket and cricket wouldn't like exist in its format. And yet it's survived. It's actually thriving. I mean, there's still a lot of right now. Cricket's making more money than it ever did. Right. So, yeah, it's. I think it's a roll of the dice. The game will shape shift eventually because there's a lot of money in it, so they won't let it die. Is my hunch. PK thoughts?
Yeah, look, I suppose we come to this topic every couple of years, as you said. Look, Test cricket isn't dead and it's not going to die anytime soon. However, it will be severely weakened if administrators let things go the way they are. We saw that the pitch in Newlands was absolutely fucking atrocious. I mean, look, I'm not giving excuses, but it was pretty shit. That being said, the Newlands curator is part-time. How are you going to expect a wonderful 5-day test wicket if the curator is part-time? I'm full-time employee and I still don't give my best every day. Right? So,
Dude, gig economy.
yeah, gig economy. But that's the thing. Cricket South Africa, CSA, doesn't have enough money like Cricket Australia or the BCCI to employ full-time curators and ground staff and everything, which is also why it was curtailed to a 2-test series, right? I mentioned Cricket Australia specifically because there have been some former Aussie test captains who've come out and blasted Cricket Australia for sending a second string side to New Zealand. One good point to mention here that is that, you know, a third string side won the Border Gavaskar Trophy for India in the Gabba, and you can asterisk the shit out of that, Tim Lane. You know, I digress. Still a bit of a source point with the asterisk. I digress.
I think it's time we explain on this show to our viewers what that asterisk controversy is with Tim Lane, because we keep referencing it, but then to the average viewer, I'm like, okay, what beef do these guys have against Tim Lane, right?
30 seconds. During one of the promo ads for the Border Gavaskar Trophy in 2021 series, Tim Lane came up on his booming voice and said, India won the Border Gavaskar Trophy in 2018 and 2019, but that victory comes with a big asterisk because Australia didn't have Steve Smith. Australia didn't have David Warner. And I'm like, so what? We still beat you. I mean, you don't see, you know, Australia telling everyone that they lost in the Ashes 3-4 times because, you know, the conditions weren't good enough. So that's where the asterisk joke comes. And every time I look at Tim Lane, I want to throw an asterisk in his face. I digress. But if Steve Watt and Michael Clarke, who've been the people that have been criticizing Cricket South Africa, if they feel that strongly, maybe they can make representations for Cricket Australia to subsidize some of CSA's costs so that, you know, CSA can send a first string side to New Zealand. I mean, look, forget South Africa. Steve Waugh and Michael Clarke would struggle to make that comparison or that business case to Australian cricket players who get paid a bomb in the IPL and whatchamacallit, in the Big Bash League. So, you know, look, 2020 leagues are here to stay, and the boards must work it out how best to move things across formats. And if it means that there's a relegation of tests and whatnot, it could very well work. That being said, I still reckon there's areas of test cricket that must be addressed. Bad light, for instance, the number of overs for lunch and tea and all those intervals. We need to make that the entertainment package much more viewable and believable and entertainable. That was my rant. I'm sorry. Vijay.
What about test leagues? Imagine if the IPL came up with a test league.
Might as well. That's what Michael Holding suggested. Yeah. That's what Michael Holding suggested. I mean, the fact is no one's going to be on the relegation thing because they're going to just go off. You know, God forbid if India lost a lot of games and was on the verge of relegation.
But I'm talking about like private leagues, like, you know, I mean, imagine Mumbai Indians having like, you know, Mumbai Indians but slower. And
dude, that's a Ranji. Dude, that's Ranji.
That's Ranji Trophy, man.
Yeah, but with foreign players.
But Hardik Pandya would still be injured.
Not if it's a private league, man.
No, I think
We'll play.
see, net, it will die down because it's not entertaining enough to a
Yeah, correct.
large audience. Everything is about views and social media these days,
And
right?
and it's not entertaining
Eyeballs.
because of the nature of the game, not
Yes.
because of who's playing it.
But I will tell you something. They tried 10 over games, and I don't think it's been as big a success as they thought it would be. And England, of course, being England, decided to call it a completely new sport, and they started something called the 100,
The
which is
100.
basically just LMS, but England doing it. 100 balls and some bullshit. I mean, it's like 80%, 82% of a T20. Like, what's the point, right? And yeah, apparently that's not been very profitable either. So this is just to say that it's not just the shorter format or the nature of the format being short that draws people to the game. It also needs to be exciting enough. So the games need to be close. The quality of the talent needs to be good. I mean, Sri Lanka has got a Premier League. Nobody watches it. So does Bangladesh. I'm sure there's a bit of local patronage, but for these leagues to break out, they do need to like get even teams. I think that's what the free market's done to IPL, wherein most of these teams, with the exception of Sunrisers, have an excellent balance of players. Sunrisers have, daddy's favorite child picking players at her will. So that's what's going to happen there. So
Look, I reckon we're gonna have to wrap this off. But before we do, you talked about the Bangladesh Premier League. When the Bangladesh Premier League started, it had an acronym BPL. Does everyone remember the BPL TVs? I thought it was something to do with the TV.
It could mean something else as well. BPL is an
Yes.
economic term, right?
Oh, yes,
And
of
Dash
course.
Pilat and Dash Pilat also. But yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, everyone, thank you. As always, it has been absolutely entertaining to talk to you about the cricket. Before we go, please do subscribe to our podcast and our YouTube channel so you can get the updates on when we're posting a new show. We will be back again very shortly to talk about the India versus England Test series. But once again, goodbye and good night and happy cricketing. See you, guys.